For me, Pep Guardiola is still one of the best, or if not the best managers in the world. In my 24 years of watching football, he, for me, is the best manager that I've ever seen out there. But in the last few years, couple of years, we've seen signs that Pep might be, just might be, not the same one that we have seen since 2007 when he was manager at Barca B and then took over at Barcelona, won everything apart from Champions League at Bayern Munich, and then came to Manchester City. You know, if you look at the results from last 3 years, that there have been signs that things may or may not be as good as what they were expected earlier on. Last year, we saw Pep being done 5-1 against Arsenal, against Liverpool. They failed to score both home and away. Then there were other matches as well. There was like bogey defeats against teams, against Brighton, Spurs as well. This season, we have seen Manchester City struggle twice against Brighton. I mean, last season and this season, but both times they the Seagulls came and beat Pep Guardiola in the Champions League. We saw that Manchester City were barely able to qualify for the playoff spot. That is the eighth, ninth to 24th spot. They beat and qualified. They qualified by beating Club Brugge in the round of in the last game. They were 1-0 down in that game, and against Manchester City. Against Manchester City, not against Manchester. What the hell am I talking about? Against Real Madrid in the knockout phase, they were thoroughly outplayed both home and away, and Manchester City went out against Real Madrid in the Champions League this season. You see, they started off very well against Wolves. Now have suffered two consecutive losses against Spurs and Brighton. So there are signs out there that the tactics that have been employed by Pep Guardiola are perhaps just might be not what are conducive in the league anymore. We've seen some younger managers come in and get the better of Pep Guardiola. So from that side, maybe there is something out there in, like, is Pep not at the same level as he was earlier on, and yeah, I mean we may have to think that Pep is not that all conquering Pep Guardiola that we saw earlier on in his managerial career, and then there are getting better of him on a fairly regular sort of a basis. Oliver Glasner last year in the FA Cup came out that he saw enough chinks in the Manchester City armor, and in the FA Cup final we saw that Crystal Palace won their first trophy. Previous year, Manchester City lost to Manchester United. Yes, you could say there were extenuating circumstances on both occasions when Manchester City were kind of basically drunk in the FA Cup final after winning the league on the last day of the season, and against Palace, maybe Dean Henderson should have been sent off. So these are a few things tactically. Maybe Manchester City are being worked out. Erling Haaland isn't as high scoring as he was in his first couple of seasons. Last season as well, he had injuries, and I mean injuries are affecting Manchester City's squad as well. Last season, we saw there were like a few injuries which affected them. And now we come to another aspect of the game where you could think that maybe Pep's maybe just maybe Pep's talent recognizing factor is slightly on the decline. Just maybe. Earlier we saw Pep signing players like Kevin De Bruyne. I mean, he came to City before Pep joined, but there were like very big rumors that he was a name that was suggested by Pep when he was at Bayern. We saw Manchester City sign Leroy Sané, Haaland, Julian Alvarez, who else we saw defensively? Kyle Walker. But nowadays we see people like by Pep as well. Nico Gonzalez in Manchester City's midfield. Uh, I mean, Ryan Cherky, who's already out injured. I am not going to write off these players, but they don't strike as players that that measure up to the likes of players that City had earlier. I mean, you look at Doku and Savio. Neither of them could lace Riyad Mahrez's boots. I mean, Bernardo Silva, when he came in, he was outstanding. Yes, he may not get as many goals as others, but he was, I mean, he was running around all over the pitch. So, signing wise, you look at players like Matthias Nunes, Doku, Savino, I've already mentioned, Ryan Cherky. Goalkeeping wise, James Trafford has been brought in. He's already made a couple of errors. I don't want to go into all the signings. I mean, we could take names of Abdukodir Kushanov or Hushanov, whatever you want to call him. So that ways, there are a few things that you can point to. You can also look at Pep on the sidelines. I mean, if you remember last season, he had that, when he was scratching or itching, there were like blood marks on his head. We could all see them, and Pep in the press conference said he liked to hurt himself or something like that. So you never know what is happening. You look at the assistants that Pep has had. Now he's got Pep Linders, who was assistant to Jurgen Klopp previously. Colo Toure is there. Previously, he had Van Malailo, German Bugos. I mean, these people that he had, he could trust, and these people have since moved on. Maybe it is having the team. I mean, it injuries. As I said, Rodri missing last season also had a big effect. And but the thing is, we are not seeing players like Rodri anymore. Not that it's easy to find another Rodri, but there are things that I mean, you could see a few chinks in the armor of Pep Guardiola. Not for one moment am I suggesting that Pep should call it a day or anything. He is perhaps still the best manager, but even at the top, you have to come down one day, and maybe the distance between the top and the second from the topmost position isn't as great as it once was, and Pep is finding that out. I mean, we'll see more in this season. Manchester City now have a few tough fixtures coming in as well, with all due respect to Wolves, Brighton, and Spurs, but Liverpool, Arsenal, and other teams, Chelsea, will pose a significant threat. And Manchester City need to make sure that they remain vigilant and do their best. Last year, there was a risk that they may miss out on top four or five or whatever. But this season, I mean, teams have strengthened. Manchester City look like they are on. I mean, they are not the same all-conquering team that they were, and we'll see. But then I think, this is a question that has been on the minds of every Manchester City or football fan out there in the world, and maybe at one day we might have to. Who knows? Pep might walk away from Manchester City at the end of the season. He would have been there for 10 years, and he's achieved a lot. He's won all the things, and who knows what might happen. The pressure of those charges at Manchester City could be taking its toll as well. So we'll see what happens. But still one of the best, if not the best managers out there. But you have to pose a question sometimes.